It is the 23rd of August, 1305, and the ancient city of London stirs beneath a veil of sombre clouds, drawn inexorably toward an execution whose shadows will linger in the annals of time. The throng swells with relentless fervour. Merchants forsake their laden carts, nobles emerge from tapestried halls, and labourers converge from shadowed alleys, their faces etched with a hunger that transcends them. They assemble to behold a man's annihilation, devised in the darkest recesses of medieval ingenuity. From afar, the clamour rises, a grating symphony of timber rasping against unyielding stone, the rhythmic thud of hooves on uneven paths, and a deeper, visceral cadence that coils dread in the gut. It is the drag of ravaged flesh over jagged cobblestones, tracing a scarlet ribbon that beckons the scavenging crows. The multitude yields like a tempest-tossed wave, parting to reveal its quarry. William Wallace, the indomitable soul who envisioned a sovereign Scotland, now lashed bare to a splintered hurdle, hauled in the wake of a weary steed. His form bears the brutal cartography of England's wrath, a testament to the 400-mile odyssey from northern wilds, where every flint and furrow has inscribed its verdict. Flayed epidermis dangles in tattered veils. Yet, in the midst of this desecration, his gaze endures a fierce ember of unyielding resolve, defying the tempests that have sought to quench it. Even as spittle and ordure rain upon his mangled frame from the jeering masses, William Wallace stands unbroken in spirit, a colossus chained but unconquered. Before we unravel these veiled chronicles of endurance and anguish, where one man's valor ignites the forge of nations, we invite you to lend your voice to this shared odyssey. If these revelations from the shadowed folds of history stir your intellect, grant us a like and subscribe to our channel, that we may continue unearthing such tales together. And in the comments below, share the distant corner of the globe from which you join us. I am continually awed by how these echoes from antiquity bind us, disparate souls united by an insatiable thirst for the truths of yesteryear, bridging epochs in a tapestry of collective wonder. To grasp the abyss into which Wallace plummets on this fateful morn, we must retrace our steps through the mists of time, to a Scotland once cradled in tranquil embrace, some 35 years prior. It is 1270, and amid the verdant swells of Renfrewshire's hills, where mist-kissed glens whisper secrets to the wind, a son enters the world under the modest roof of Sir Malcolm Wallace, a gentleman of humble acres, whose deepest yearnings lie in the quiet stewardship of his soil and fealty to his liege. They christen the babe William, oblivious to the tempests he shall. In the cradle of the rugged Highlands, young William unfurls like a sapling in fertile earth, his frame burgeoning with the sinew of the land itself. He masters the arcane arts of letters and script, a rare endowment for one of his modest lineage, delving into Latin's hallowed verses under the cloistered tutelage of monastic scholars, honing an intellect as keen and unerring as a falcon's strike. Yet it is his corporeal might that kindles whispers across the vales. By his 20th spring, Wallace towers at nigh 6 feet and 7 inches, a titan amid mortals, his thews vast enough to shoulder a realm's aspirations, his grasp forged to command a 6-foot claymore with the lethal grace of tempests unleashed. In Wallace's formative years, Scotland basks in an idyll of serenity. King Alexander III governs with sagacious fortitude, his reign a balm upon the land. Emporia teem with vibrant commerce, granaries swell with bountiful yields, and the folk retire beneath thatched eaves to dreams undisturbed by strife's clamour. But destiny, that inexorable architect of ruin, harbours designs far more. In 1286, upon a gale-ravaged eve that evokes the grim auguries of seers, Alexander spurs his mount along the precipitous cliffs of Kinghorn, only to plummet into the churning void below. With his sovereign's fall, Scotland's luminous epoch fractures like fragile crystal. Succession devolves to Margaret, the Maid of Norway, a tender child of 3 summers, her feet yet unacquainted with her destined realm's heathered shores. For 4 precarious years, guardians steer the ship of state amid tempests of cabal and suspicion. Then, in 1290, the fragile heir perishes en route to her coronation, her small vessel claimed by the North Sea's unforgiving gales. Thus, Scotland teeters kingless, adrift in a maelstrom of ambition, on the cusp of a pact that shall anoint its fields with the gore of enduring strife. Into this void strides Edward Longshanks, Edward I of England, a sovereign whose epithet evokes the sinewy menace of a predator uncoiled. At 6 feet 2 inches in an era when most men scarce crest 5.5, Edward embodies martial dominion, his lifetime a chronicle of subjugation. Wales already languishes beneath his unyielding gauntlet, its bards silenced, its fortresses enthralled. Now, his predatory gaze pivots northward. Besieged by fractious barons eager to avert fraternal carnage, the Scots entreat him as arbiter among throne's pretenders, an unwitting summons of the lupine scourge to the fold. Edward anoints John Balliol, a pliant figure he deems malleable as a marionette in his grasp. Yet Edward's designs eclipse mere coronations. He exacts oaths of obeisance from Scottish magnates, consigns their juridical quarrels to English tribunals, and compels their chivalry to his continental crusades, each edict a cinch upon the throat of Scottish autonomy. By 1296, even the yielding Balliol chafes at such degradations. He proclaims Scotland's sovereignty anew, forging pacts with France and spurning his tributary bonds to Edward. The English monarch's reprisal descends with the velocity of judgment. Legions swarm the marches like a biblical horde, devouring all in their path. Berwick upon Tweed, the frontier bastion, endures the inaugural onslaught, a cataclysm of savagery that etches itself indelibly upon the Scottish psyche. Edward's legions transcend conquest. They enact apocalypse. Defenders yield not to surrender but to indiscriminate slaughter. Sires, dames, innocents, and nurslings torn from maternal bosoms, all consigned to the blade's merciless kiss. Chroniclers evoke torrents, crimsoned with lifeblood, pyres of corpses heaped as faggots for winter hearths, a hush so profound that avian scavengers forsake their dirges. 17,000 perish in that singular dawn, their transgression merely the accident of birth beyond an arbitrary frontier. This is the furnace of atrocity that tempers William Wallace's mettle, the alchemical blaze of carnage that hardens his unassailable will. When Edward divests Balliol of regalia and sceptre, compels his ritual abasement in scant linen before jeering throngs, and proclaims himself Scotland's suzerain, Wallace observes from the fringes, his features a mask of restrained inferno. As Scottish lords genuflect and inscribe the ragman rolls, pledging vassalage to the interloper, Wallace's mandible clenches in visceral contempt. When English bailiffs carve up ancestral domains for their confederates, appraising the storied kingdom as mere plunder, an elemental fracture rends the colossal youth from Renfrew, a schism betwixt fealty and fury. The conflagration that propels Wallace's insurgency erupts in May of 1297, ignited by a trifling ember of the intimate, as oft transpires in history's pivotal pivots. Chronicles veil the precipitant in ambiguity. Perchance the slaying of his cherished Marion Braidfute, as bardic elegies lament. Perchance the culmination of beheld tyrannies amassed beyond endurance. Yet when Wallace unsheathes his falchion against William de Hazelrig, the English sheriff of Lanark, he breaches an irrevocable threshold. Hazelrig's demise reverberates through the subjugated realm like a thunderclap. Herein strides a champion unshrinking to crimson English veins, a sentinel scorning obeisance, gazing upon Edward Longshanks' colossal apparatus of dominion, and proclaiming, "Thus far, no further." Retaliation erupts with galvanic immediacy. Labourers vanish from furrows and forges, melting into mist-shrouded woodlands and crags to swell Wallace's nascent cadre. Yet Wallace transcends the archetype. Addressing assemblies in the gloaming, his timbre resonates with prophetic gravity. "We contend not for splendour or trove, nor for laurels ephemeral, but for liberty alone, which no noble soul forfeits save with his final exhalation." Autumn's amber hues of 1297 herald Wallace's confrontation with England's plenary puissance at Stirling Bridge, a rendezvous where disparity mocks the gods of war. Scots muster perchance 6,000 against 15,000 English, arrayed with Europe. The denouement shatters every canon of contemporary warfare. Wallace bides with arachnid vigilance as the English traverse the frail viaduct, a ponderous pilgrimage of hours, wherein chargers, footmen, and impedimenta constrict into a serpentine vulnerability. Orthodox precept demands precipitate assault, yet Wallace discerns the arcane rhythm of fate. At the cusp, half the foe arrayed yonder, he unleashes the pikemen cascade from the acclivity in a deluge of doom, their Gaelic roars rebounding from the Firth's glassy expanse. The English, sundered by the current's cruel divide, falter in deploying their numerical supremacy. The span transmutes to a charnel conduit of panic, rooted ranks trampling kin in frenzied recoil. Cressingham, Edward's fiscal despot loathed for rapacity and rigour, succumbs amid the melee. Vengeful Scots, channeling primal outrage, excoriate his cadaver, crafting girdles and scrips from its hide, a macabre emblem of retribution. By twilight's veil, the vaunted English host lies in splintered ruin, and Wallace has wrought the inconceivable. Stirling Bridge elevates him from insurgent to paragon incarnate. He ascends as guardian of Scotland, the realm's provisional potentate. For a fugitive interlude, the parable of David felled Goliath appears manifest. Wallace orchestrates forays into England's northern marches, reciprocating Scotland's afflictions with compounded ferocity. Rustic English enclaves evacuate as Highland reavers consign homesteads to pyres, their conflagrations etching silhouettes against nocturnal vaults. The psychic laceration festers. If Wallace can unhorse England's elite, what further prodigies might unfurl? Yet Edward Longshanks brooks no such eclipse. The crusader who tamed Wales, who tempered his legend in Outremer's sands, harbours no clemency for such affronts. Forsaking Gallic entanglements, he summons his preeminent paladins, marshalling a host consecrate. Their destinies converge anew at Falkirk on the 22nd of July, 1298, a clash where Edward, schooled by Stirling's admonition, wields prudence as his foremost armament. Overwhelming might converges. Wallace's levies, preponderant spearmen scant in discipline, confront England's chivalric apex, buttressed by Welsh. Carnage unfolds inexorably. Scottish skiltrons, impenetrable phalanxes of pikes, radiating as colossal urchins, repel equestrian onslaughts with stoic tenacity, yet flinch undefended before the aerial barrage. Longbowmen, emplaced with lepidopteran acuity, loose volleys that reap hundreds in staccato harvest, shrieks engulfed by the maelstrom of iron and thunder. As formations fracture, English lancers surge through fissures like flood through breached levees. John de Graham, Wallace's steadfast comrade and bulwark, perishes unyielding, his corpse a tapestry of perforations. The Scottish array dissolves, bequeathing the sword a shroud of slain. Wallace extricates by scant margin. Falkirk inaugurates Wallace's nadir, a requiem for glory. Compelled to relinquish guardianship, forsaken by aristocrats who recast him as encumbrance rather than emblem, he emerges landless, a spectre adrift. Law disperses him variably. To France, soliciting Philip IV's Egypt, seasons accrue. Successors hoist the standard of defiance. Robert the Bruce, erstwhile English adjunct, inaugurates his bid for the diadem. John Comyn, Wallace's erstwhile contender, barters accommodations with the conquerors, Scotland's peerage, pragmatic as ever, but Edward's rancour festers undimmed. The Stirling slight gnaws eternally. Wallace's shadow renders England's laurels hollow. Until that phantom yields to oblivion, triumph eludes. Culmination arrives in August 1305, not amid heroic fray, but through perfidy's sordid bargain. Sir John Menteith, a Scot bartered for English specie, entices Wallace to parley near Glasgow, perhaps proffering succour for resurgence, or tidings of adversary. English cutthroats encircle. Wallace's sinews surge for combat, yet isolation and exile's attrition prevail. The behemoth who once bestrode melees as incarnate fury succumbs to fetters, a trophy consigned to his nemesis. The southward pilgrimage orchestrates debasement as keenly as transit. Paraded through principal burghs, Wallace endures as caged quarry for English delectation. Juveniles pelt his enclosure with flints, elders unleash vitriol and sewage. Each league severs him from his embattled. Edward might have dispatched Wallace with dispatch and Noose's abrupt embrace, cervical fracture, and eternal hush. Yet expedience yields to theatre. He contrives a pageant of such primordial dread that it shall pulverize insurgency's marrow for epochs, imprinting upon every Scot the tariff of contumacy. Westminster Hall, bastion of English equity, furnishes the proscenium, a colossus of Norman vaulting, its oaken canopy vaulting nigh 100 feet, basalt facades emblazoned with emblems of triumphant dynasts, enveloped by dominion. Indictments border on farce, were their sequelae, not cataclysmic. High treason against Edward, sans sworn subjection, homicide and brigandage, though victims were invaders, spoils funneled to emancipation, impiety, his sole transgression the repudiation of vouchsafed utterance. Wallace's proclamation resounds as clarion peal. Traitor, I cannot be to Edward, for never was I his liege. No fealty do I tender. Adjudicators, verdict inscribed in stone, decree the apotheosis of medieval barbarity. To be hanged, drawn, and quartered, a right apex of punitive invention, meted solely to male recreants. Its indecencies deemed unfit for feminine frailty. It aspires not terminus, but obliteration. Manifold demand. Dawn of the 23rd breaks leaden and suffocating. London a cauldron of expectancy. Hawkers peddle viands and libations to the amassing legions. Patricians procure premier vantages. Urchins, truant from primers, jostle for ocular primacy. Avarice for gore saturate. At Westminster, Wallace is denuded and lashed to the hurdle, a rude pallet for burdensome haulage, emblematic of forfeited humanity. No longer warrior, but freight to terminus. Cord binds ankles to equine tack. The beast's lurch inaugurates the Via Dolorosa through labyrinthine lanes. Cobblestones transmute to rack. The cortege trails as morbid revelry, execrations blending with the grind of soma on gravel. The cavalcade meanders interminably, athwart street. Paul's august nave, where clerics genuflect and avert, through teeming bazaars, vendors forsaking wares, Smithfield unfurls as Thanatopic Colosseum, the elms arboreal sentinels framing a dais amid palisades to bridle the horde. It has cradled myriad dispatchments, yet none rival this opus. Gallows loom with pendulous tackle akin to infernal yardarms. Cauldrons seethe. Hanging inaugurates the liturgy. Wallace, teetering on awareness's brink, ascends to the gibbet's maw. Coils of hempen cable, thumb thick, encircle his gullet with artisan's finesse. Silence descends. The ligature vivifies, throttling respiration yet sparing pulse. Torso thrashes in asphyxial ballet, visage purpling to indigo, orbs protuberant as cranial vice tightens. Onlookers mesmerize. As oblivion beckons, reprieve descends. Wallace plummets to deck, noose slackened to admit life's elixir. He convulses in ravenous inhalation, thorax labouring as forge. Respite proves illusion, the nadir impends. Drawing commences amid residual gasps. laminae gleam as auroral blades incise subcostal, parting thorax to groin in lancets artistry. Sanguine freshets deluge the stage, vaporous in dawn. Endurance mocks physiology. Abdomen yields paunch, serpentine and pallid. Entrails uncoil in furlongs, iridescent and febrile, proffered to pyres amid approbatory thunder. Aromas conflict. Castration crowns the litany. Swift excision claims virility, aloft as sanguine icon ere immolation. The throng crescendos, symbolism stark. Thus perishes. Quartering defers to mortality's mercy. As cardiac metronome falters, Wallace's murmur, devotion, malediction, or patria's utterance seals transcendence. Upon cessation, sated, the assembly ebbs. Yet Wallace's odyssey endures. Cranium, pitch, embalmed, adorns London Bridge's pinnacle, the inaugural sentinel. Quarters disseminate northward. Newcastle, Berwick, Stirling, Perth harbingers. Edward Longshanks envisions consummation. Defiance, incarnate not slain, but atomized. Corpus disseminated as chaff. No beholder of such, yet despots err in martyrdom's calculus. Corporeal terminus begets indomitable essence. As Wallace's relics fester, a phoenix stirs in Caledonian veins. His savagery, contrived to subjugate, kindles conflagration perdurable. Ere autumn's leaf, Robert the Bruce fells Comyn in sacrosanct nave, claiming crown. Independence's strife, unquelled by Wallace's terminus, escalates to primal zenith. At Loudon Hill, Bannockburn, myriad swords, his nom de guerre resounds as tocsin, blanching English sinew. Edward himself eludes Scotland's yoke, expiring in 1307, 2 years post-Wallace, his parting fiat, purported to excoriate his husk and helm legions till conquest crowns. But Edward II, frail scion, falters. English clasp attenuates to rupture. Culmination irony manifests in 1320's Arbroath. Nobles convene, inscribing liberty's palimpsest, resonant with Wallace's unyielding timbre, while 100 endure. Ne'er shall we brook English dominion. Not for pomp, nor pelf, nor plaudits we strive, but Wallace beheld not his phantasm's fruition, yet his immolation sowed sovereignty's bloom. Execution, blueprint of hegemony, catalyzed its antithesis. Perchance therein resides his paramount conquest. Smithfield's agonized husk, riven and exiled, forged in demise what vitality could not eternity, not somatic, but incarnate in a folk's inexorable autonomy. 7 centuries hence, upon that ashen aurora, Wallace's appellation yet quickens vitae. Recounted across epochs, it fuels each era's gauntlets. The frame consigned to ash endures not, yet its ethos, liberty's ransom, transcends all flares undimmed. Contemplating Smithfield's contemporary flux, Pluck sentinel to his terminus, one ponders his reverie of perdurance. Would approbation greet the conflagration his passing ignited? Astonishment at veneration perennial in his cherished soil? Resolution resides in remembrance. Amid his saga emboldens the forlorn, solitary 'gainst leviathans, unswerving in credo though forfeit claims all. Envisioned finale to insurgency's scroll, his dispatchment birthed legend eclipsing realms a paean to spirit's sovereignty en route. In unfractured, ungenuflected, defiant terminus as in vital apex Wallace sized Zola triumph, immortality. Thus, Renfrew's spectral titan traverses our midst, enjoining that select pursuits merit combat, cost unheeded. In valor's defiance, 'gainst abyssal odds, in credo's bulwark o'er expedients, in contumacy to iniquity's throne, Wallace's quintessence abides. The quartered corpus, wind-scattered, yields to dust, yet freedom's vision for which he perished kindles everlasting.